Okay, so in a moment we will continue from where we left and add a new box to our layout. But before I do that, I want to draw your attention to one little thing. And that is the way this code is formatted. Now normally when you pass parameters to functions, these are always separated by commas. So for example here I have a nav bar and I pass in the title and the elevation parameters, and I have a comma at the end of each parameter. Now what you would do in other languages is to not have this comma on the last parameter. However, one very important thing to know is that the way in which you use commas in Dart is going to affect how your code is formatted. So what do I mean by that? As you can see on this file, the way we build our widgets in Flutter is by composition. So for example, here we have a container and inside it there is a column, and then inside we have another container and finally a sized box. This is still a relatively simple layout. However, if you look at the way this code is formatted, it looks a little bit like a pyramid of sorts, like this. And this is something that helps us keep track of the widget hierarchy that we're building. In addition to that, our code editor is adding for us some annotations at the end of each closing bracket. So for each closing bracket over here, we can see to which widget it refers to. So where am I going with all of this? Now this is a good time to introduce a command called dartfmt. And you can choose this command by opening up the code menu over here and going all the way down here to reformat code with Dart format. Now be aware that there is also another line here called reformat code, so make sure you choose the correct one, which is called reformat code with Dart format. And by the way, on my system I've added a custom shortcut to access this quickly, so that here I can just press Alt Command L and I can format my code. So after doing this, you can see that the code has been reformatted. And the way Dart format does this is based upon where you put the commas in your code. So what I'm going to suggest going forward is that we always add commas at the end of parameter lists. So what this means for this code specifically is that here, for example, I had forgotten to put the comma at the end of my column. And so after formatting, the two closing brackets for column and container are folded together. So what I'm going to do is to add a comma here and then run Dart format again. And you can see that the indentation has now changed. So just to give you another preview of how using commas affects your indentation, here I could remove this comma at the end of the up bar, and if I format again, I can now see that the whole up bar has been indented and put just on one line. So for the remainder of this course, you see me use commas very often, and the reason for that is that Flutter widgets often take a lot of different parameters. So I think separating them line by line keeps the code much more readable. Okay, so now that we clarified that, I can add the missing comma over here, and I'm also going to add this one over here so that we have them all. Alright, so before we move on, I just want to mention that if you want to customize your keyboard shortcuts in Android Studio, you can just go here on the menu, select Preferences, and here you find a key map item, and on the right, all the menus that are on the menu bar up here, you can just see them, open them up, and then you can select your own key maps for each one of the items that you want to change. Alright, so we can close this. And if you are using Android Studio, by all means, you can spend some time customizing your shortcuts. And by the way, if you want to learn more about my favorite Flutter shortcuts, you can head over to my blog post over here. And this is an entire article about all the shortcuts that I use in my own IDE. And so you can just read it through and learn more about Dart formatting options and other key maps that I have. So once again, if you want to read this article, you can just head over to my blog at medium.com/codingwithflutter, and you should be able to find the article over here or down the list. Okay, so we talked about code formatting in detail, and we're ready to continue on the next video.